Hey man, are you tired? Coffee's just not doing it for you these days. Let's talk about something different. Let's talk about cacao. Cacao comes from the theobroma plant. Broma means food, and theo means, well, God. So why aren't more of us talking about this godlike food source? Packed with antioxidants, polyphenols, theobromine, which is like caffeine but without the jitters, healthy fat, low carbs, protein, magnesium, calcium, and the highest plant source concentration of iron known to man. Why aren't we consuming this stuff every day? Well, you can. Our partners at Cora Cacao offer ceremonial grade cacao, sustainably sourced, plant to paste from fair trade farms in the Mayan motherland of Guatemala. Cora Cacao is committed to delivering cacao products to you at reasonable prices in a way that makes the world a better place for all involved. Whether you're making morning cocoa lattes, iced cacao, hosting a meditation ceremony, or just doing alchemy in your mom's basement, Cora Cacao is committed to supplying you with the highest grade stuff for what you, your body, and your mind need. So head on over to coracacao.com. That's coracacao.com. Use promo code INTHEKEEP, one word, all caps, at checkout for 10% off your order. It's time to replace those bad habits with good ones, and using Cora Cacao for your energy and nutrient needs is a great place to start. I'm proud to call Cora Cacao a partner of In the Keep, and I hope that you will be proud to call them a new part of your daily routine. Much love.
The biggest challenge I have is too many ideas and too many books to write and not enough time. I've got an urban fantasy series, a Canadian werewolf series. Book 7 came out last year, and book 8 was supposed to come out this year, and I just have not had the time to work on it because I'm working on so many other things. I just signed a contract to write a book of ghost stories of the Great Lakes. Mm-hmm. And so the goal is throughout the summer and the fall, circumnavigating at least Lake Ontario and Lake Huron. I'm not going to be able to do Lake Superior and well, Lake Michigan's all in the U.S. So I did get a grant from the Ontario government for research, but the research is kind of like the meant to be spent in Ontario travel. But that's going to be a really fun one because as I'm gathering the stories, and a lot of the stories are coming from other sources already, like books and articles, magazines and newspaper articles, and going into the local libraries and digging into the archives. But when I'm at the various locations for when the book comes out, which is not coming out till next year, I deliver it to the publisher in December, is I'm going to do some videos of myself on location at, like, here I am in Cleveland, like by the haunted lighthouse or whatever, right? And get some video so that when the book comes out a year later, I have all these promotional videos that I can use. And maybe, and I've done this before with Free Friday Frights on my YouTube channel. Sure. Is I would share like a story from one of my books. Like, hey, I'm at the haunted Levack mine up north of Sudbury, Ontario, and I'm going to tell you a story about haunted, the haunted level, whatever. And that was always a lot of fun doing them on location. But I thought, I've never done that in advance of the book coming out. Like, create the video now, and then I have the promotional video so that when the book comes out, I'm not scrambling and driving all over the place trying to get these videos done.
Sure. Yeah, it's anytime you're in any sort of independent content creation, whatever that happens to be, or I should just say independent job, period, you have to be constantly self-promoting. It's 90% of your job. So
pretty
like,
much,
like Da Vinci, if he had a publicist or something like that, you need someone who's telling other people about all your good ideas and not just,
Yeah.
your idea it'll stand on its own. Like, no way, you have to negotiate with people
No.
to be able to.
No, you gotta be out there, right? You gotta be
Yeah,
in front of the right people too,
yeah,
and it seems to be like this whole other. I know when I started in the book industry back in the early days before the internet and all that,
mm,
the belief was that you would write a book and send it to your publisher and then you're done.
right,
And then all the magic happened, and now that's not the case. Whether you're working with a publisher or whether you're self-published, and I do both. Now, I'm still doing, 90% of the heavy lifting.
right,
I have Mickey as a publicist to help me and get me in front of the right people like you, but also, yeah, doing a lot of stuff. So there is no more days of you finish the manuscript and you're done.
right. No, that's go out and pimp it to the whole world.
Yeah.
Yeah, my one of my friends is like a fine artist. He's actually from like Chicago, and he was telling me about how one of the things that he transitioned in his 50s, maybe late 40s, really, from fine art to video game design. And he's like,
Mm,
the reason why I like games more is because you can just kind of put a game out and it will
yeah,
sell on its
yeah.
merit of how good people think it is. Whereas art,
No.
like the fine art world, is almost like you're just constantly networking. You're always at different shows with the different people who have their little spats between them,
Yeah,
and how they, everyone will kind of just be competing with each other. And what you're really competing for is attention, and not whether or not your art is really any better, or if you could even
yeah,
measure that. And it's like book authoring is also kind of in between that space now, where it's never been easier really to publish a physical book if you want to. Like, you can
yeah.
spend a few bucks and have copies of anything that you want basically delivered to your door at this point. But then, distributing them is the hard part. So, yeah, what is that like? What is that scene like, or when you're
Yeah,
managing
so it's
bookstores and
yeah, it's really funny because, I mean, I've created a self-publishing platform here in Canada for
Uh-huh.
Kobo, for ebooks, but I also consult for Draft Digital, which, draftdigital.com was founded in Oklahoma City,
Mhm.
and, they merged with, Smashwords, another self-publishing aggregator, and they started off with ebooks, but now they also have, Draft Digital print.
Right,
And if you have your manuscript ready to go, edited manuscript in Word, and even a simple cover design, but they also own bookcovers.com. So if you're looking for a cover design, you can find one from anywhere from $75 to like $500, depending on the designer. And they're pre-built covers, so you can go in and say, "Oh, this is a good cover," and then replace the text with the text and change the fonts and stuff with your name,
sure.
and bam, you've got a cover, right? Instantly, a DIY version of the cover if you don't want to work with a designer, because some designers will put up these templates for you that cost less because they don't have to do the extra lifting. And the thing I love about being a writer now is I can do both. I can continue to work with publishers and get my books, sign a contract and get my books out there, but I can also do it myself. I mean, I just launched a nonfiction book for writers earlier this week it's called the Podcast Guest Playbook. And it's available in print and it's available in ebook and it's online everywhere, right?
Right,
And there's going to be very few bookstores that probably carry that book unless I have a relationship or I'm doing an event with them. But the joy is I, as an author, have the benefit of both. Now, with my traditionally published books, and most of my ghost story books are traditionally published, the publisher, I don't make as much money on those,
right,
but I'm working with publishers that actually have distribution. I've walked into bookstores throughout North America, in Canada and the US, and found my bookstores on the shelves. Haunted Hospitals is probably one of the more popular ones that's going to be available throughout the States. And I remember randomly finding it at Barnes and Noble when I was walking in going, "Hey, oh my God, they have my book." So that's a really cool thing. My self-published books are not readily available in bookstores, but they're all available online, like print on demand. And the challenge is I don't make as much money off my traditionally published books. I make way more money on the self-published books, but I also have the benefit of in-store distribution
mhm,
with trad. So I will give up some of the royalties that I earn on the stuff I do myself in order to have the privilege of having, the publisher can get. I've got found my books in Walmart and Costco as well, which is a really nice vanity thing. When you walk in, you see a skid of your books in a major store. That always feels good. But knowing that once every book sells, I'll get $1 a year later.
Sure.
You
Yeah.
Whereas, I sell an ebook for $5, today, and in a month and a half, I'm going to get $3.50 directly into my bank account.
It Yeah, it's a totally different business than when you're talking about, like, dealing with logistics. So, like, folks that thought it was gonna be a great idea to invest in, Blockbuster at some point, right?
Yeah,
The business of renting movies is virtually nothing to do with movies. It's all about, like, how good are you at warehouse logistics, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
in the book world for historically, it's always been the same way, but yeah, having a direct to consumer way
yeah.
of handling, your transactions, ebooks really changed the mold with that.
Oh,
Um,
for sure. And
and
I have the PayHip and the Square account, so people can
yeah,
buy my ebooks online, and ebooks and audiobooks are delivered immediately
yeah,
to a free app on your phone. The challenge of physical books, and I'll be honest with you, I've got the scale, I've got the stock because I do a lot of in-person events with both my trad books that I buy from the publisher as well as the one
mm,
I've made myself. And the logistics of packing and shipping is just a pain. I mean, here in Canada, we don't have a media mail.
sure,
So I know in the States, it's really cheap to ship a book.
yep.
In Canada, it's $15 to $20 just for one book to ship.
So I had it was years ago, but I was sending all of like my Patreon supporters or something. I forget what it was. I sent them all something in the mail. It was like a letter and a T-shirt and some other stuff or whatever.
Yes.
And it cost me less money to send to Auckland, New Zealand than it did to send to Ontario.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
When you think about how far it has to go,
I know.
it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I needed to go up the road and then right
Yeah.
there. Yeah. But New
It,
Zealand was cheaper by far.
and it's so funny. So authors I know, I live about an hour and a half from the border. I can get into New York State, like through Niagara Falls.
Mhm.
And there are friends I know that pack up when they have to ship stuff to the States. They'll drive across the border, go to a US post office and mail it from there,
Sure.
just to save them. Because even with the gas cost, you're still saving money.
Yep. No, yeah, I wonder why that is, but regardless, the it's never been a better landscape to be an independent
Oh, for
creator,
sure.
like, so when that comes to, books,
Yeah.
being direct to consumer, even I think you could argue about music because, like, historically, people made a lot of movie off or money off of album sales, but now
Yeah.
it's like you really just need to get popular enough that whatever town you're going to, you can fill up whatever venue you're playing,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, and sadly, that's even with a major record deal, that's where the most of the money was made, right? Was
Yeah,
the merchandise and filling those stands with
I
people.
I think it was Ice-T was talking about, like, his whole philosophy on how he's handled his music career is like, people have this, like, "I need more, I need bigger, bigger, bigger," audiences and all this kinda thing, and he's like, "You really just need, like, 500 people in every town that will fill up a club, and you will make a living."
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
That's
It goes
enough to
back to,
sustain it.
yeah, well, the guy who created Wired magazine,
Mhm.
Kevin Kelly, came up with the 1,000 True Fans,
Sure, yeah,
right? If you have 1,000 true fans who will purchase every new thing you do, that can make a sustainable career.
yeah,
And it kinda works out. I mean, now 1,000 true fans buying a book at 99 cents in ebook format's not gonna be a sustainable career, but if they're coming to events and they're seeing you and they're purchasing special editions, which
sure,
we can easily make special editions of our books. I mean, my last, horror collection that came out in, yeah, in, October last year was a 20th anniversary celebration of the very first book I'd published back in 2004.
right,
It was this expanded edition. I spent over $1,000 US on original artwork to go inside of it. I had the regular ebook edition, the regular trade paperback, but then the hardcover and the special edition had like full page art spreads and special binding and stuff like that.
sure,
So the book's available in audio and ebook, in regular trade paperback and regular hardcover, but then there was this special edition that was limited, to only 100 copies as well. And so we have that power now.
Yeah.
As authors, we can create these and platforms, as you mentioned, Patreon. I have,
Yeah.
Patreon supporters for my podcast that help me with that, but also with Kickstarter. I raised $5,000, and I used that money because I also put that book into traditional distribution warehouses. So that one, even though it's self-published, is available through bookstores, and you can walk into a bookstore and easily get it. But that was a significant amount of lifting I had to do. I also worked in the book industry since 1992, so I kind of know a little bit of the ins and outs of how that works.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting, just making the comparison again to games is so, like, if I design a video game, let's just say it takes me a year to make it, and I
Mhm.
put it out on Steam, even in, like, something really low, like $3 or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have to make more of that game. It's just you put it out one time and then it distributes itself, and it's the same with ebooks, but whereas when you're dealing with, any physical media, books especially, you do have to, like, keep up with it, and then even if you're independent so this is, I think, something that, like, the normal person sitting, they're it's not in the book industry or the games industry or something like that. They don't really think about how, um there's a pretty solid chance someone else owns the copyright of your product in many cases, right? So, like, a lot of video games that are just, sitting on a shelf somewhere, until they get, like, a remaster or something is it's not necessarily because people don't want it. It's because someone, like a publisher, retained the intellectual property at some point. It's the
Right,
same thing
yeah.
in games too, where or sorry, it's the same thing in books as well, where if you'd make a publishing deal and somebody else has the rights to your book and you can't just like so a customer comes to you and says, "I want a special edition of this." Other than you,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
yeah, unless you do it for by hand for them or something like that. Yeah,
Yeah, so I mean, that happened to me a few years ago. Haunted Hamilton was the first true ghost story book that I published. So Hamilton's kind of like Pittsburgh, Steel Town,
yeah,
where a lot of steel processing happens. Hamilton, Ontario, between Niagara and Toronto, for anyone who's not familiar.
right,
And that book came out 13 years ago, and probably about 5 years ago, just before the pandemic. A company reached out to me called Voice Map, and it's a GPS-enabled walking tour map, and they were interested in getting me to do a walking tour, GPS-enabled walking tour of some haunted places based on the books. Now, I signed over the audiobook rights to the publisher, so I don't have the audiobook rights to the book, but I do have the rights to the IP for that. Like, so the
mm,
research I did to write the book, I still have all of those notes. I still have all of that. What I was able to do was readapt the some of the stories from the book into a voice map walking tour, and I was able to leverage that. So even though I was bound in one particular format, there are this other format was an interactive walking tour,
right,
where the GPS on your phone tells you where to go. Okay, walk south or whatever. Now you're in front of the old Tivoli Theater, and I'm going to tell you a story about that. So that was a way I got around being locked in,
mm,
but that's a challenge when, if somebody wanted, hey, like I wanted to even give a copy of the ebook of a book that is traditionally published. I don't have the rights to just give it to someone. I have to get the publisher to give it to them
yeah,
because I've signed those rights over.
yeah, and not to mention the revenue split too. It's like you're
Oh,
figuring
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
exactly. But with my own stuff, like when somebody reaches out and I was like, yeah, yeah, do you want the audiobook? Yeah, here you go. I'll just give me your email address and I'll fire it off to you. And there's a free app on your phone. You can listen to it and you'll have it in 2 minutes.
yeah, yeah. Now, like, audiobooks seem to be I'm not gonna say the number one, but it's way up there in how people consume books. But I would say to some degree, it's not necessarily that it's replaced reading, so much so as that people who would otherwise not read will do
Yes.
audiobooks.
Well, because
So
you can do it while you're driving, while you're walking the dog, while you're going for a walk or a
yeah,
run, while you're washing the dishes, right?
yeah.
I mean, an audiobook's expensive to make, but honestly, it's improved my ability to read more books. I usually have a physical book on the go. I have like a ebook on the go, and then I have an audiobook on the go all the time.
I'm trying to figure out why audiobooks are expensive to make because
Well, you have to pay for the narrator. So you're paying anywhere from $150 to $500 an hour for a professional narrator.
Oh yeah.
And a typical book's 8 to 10 hours, right? So that adds up.
I think that there's maybe some crossover between businesses such that like from a independent video game standpoint, the cost of making an audiobook seems like a small budget, but if you're used to your budget, if your budget for your book is basically your time and research and nothing else,
Yeah.
then all right, well, you can kind of do whatever you want. But I guess
Yeah.
if let's just say, like in my case right now, I'm working on this one game. I've honestly been working on it for like 5 years. It's gonna come out,
Yeah.
but uh, I figure every person who's ever worked on that over time have to add up everything that they've ever been paid, and then any
Yeah.
tools that we use, all that kind of thing. Like it's way more, way like
Oh, it's
infinitely
gonna,
more than an
for
audiobook.
sure. Yeah.
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 So I was thinking if you're a if you're already a proficient podcaster or something like that, I'm not saying like use
Yeah.
my voice, but you're familiar enough with the video editing side or the, just
Oh,
audio
yes. Yeah.
editing side of things. And because we have tons of voice actors, right?
Yep.
Between the two trades. So
Yeah.
people who are doing characters for games or for
Yeah.
animation, and also who are like, and I'll also read your audiobook.
Yeah.
And that's a large pool of people who are not in your $500 an hour range. Yeah,
Yeah. No,
it's
no, it's huge. Yeah. No, it is huge. Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah, it
And
can't be that bad. Like, it can't be that hard
well, I
actually to
mean,
produce.
honestly, so at $150 an hour, which is
Mm,
a very reasonable rate,
mm,
that still adds up, and the earnings on audiobooks is still not as high as ebooks. Now, the other thing I have done, but here's the challenge. I've got I prefer for my fiction, I prefer to have them narrated by someone else, not me, by a professional narrator, and I've got about 6 different narrators I've worked with over the years who are really good, very professional. They have the in-home studios and stuff, and again, the highest I've ever paid is $500 an hour. I'm usually paying about 250 an hour on average for most of those books, but, I've done some of the nonfiction stuff myself.
mm,
And the challenge there is I can do it. I have the professional equipment. I have the know-how. I have all of the stuff. I have Adobe, the suite. I can do the editing with Audition and other tools. I've got sort of hooks in the ceiling and wall where I can hang blankets and muffle the acoustics to give it a good quality sound. The challenge is the time it takes.
mm,
To do a 400-page book would take me about 80 hours of work. And the challenge with me doing a million different things is I don't have that time.
right.
And so that's the challenge. The other thing, because I'm a big nerd when it comes to testing out new technologies, is I have an AI voice of me, Mark Leslie Lefebvre, my full name,
Right.
and I've actually licensed my voice through 11 Labs AI. My AI voice anyone can use, and I'll get a cut
Yeah.
I'll get micropayment every time someone goes to use my voice. And I've used it myself when I have a weekly podcast, and sometimes for the interviews like yourself, I pre-interview and then release them later. But for the introductory matter and stuff, if I'm traveling or I don't have a good mic with me, or I've got really horrible acoustics, or I lost my voice because I have a cold, I'll use the AI Mark, and I'll identify myself. Hey, this is the AI voice of Mark. I'm in a crappy hotel room with bad acoustics, so this is the AI voice doing the introduction, and I've been using that for years. But I thought, okay, and I've only made about $50 off the voice so far, but I'm
Mm,
thinking somebody wants to use my voice for an 11 reader. They have an app where you can listen to audiobooks, and you can choose what voice you wanna hear it in,
yeah.
on the device, and I was thinking, "Well, I want in on that action."
Rick Rubin has done a bunch of really crazy interviews with, like, dead people, using
Yeah,
AI voice generation and,
yeah,
just, like, I guess that he has something review their entire body of work and come up with responses that you would think. The thing is that
it's amazing.
when he publishes it, it doesn't say dead person on there, so, like, his conversation
Yes,
with Jim Morrison or something,
yeah,
which is crazy how
It's yeah.
convincing it is nowadays. But
It
and
reminds me of the old Star Trek Next Generation, where they
yeah,
would have dead scientists come into the
yeah,
come into their what the heck did they call that
the
room?
holodeck, whereas
The
Geordi has like
holodeck. They
the
come in.
engineer of the ship, like the
Yeah,
girl who
yeah. I
made
was
it.
I was just the engineer of the ship. Geordi
Yeah,
gets to interact with her and solve a problem based on using all of the stuff that
and
the
he
computer knows
falls
about
in
her
love with her
memory.
too.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Great, great episode.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it's just terrifying the implications.
Yeah.
And as someone like if you have a podcast or in your case have been on a lot of things where your voice is recorded too, luckily you've already went ahead and given it to them. But it's
Yeah.
not hard for them to use, just
Oh, it's out there. Yeah, there's probably 1,000 hours of my voice over the last
mm,
15 years, right? In my own podcast and various ones. So I was like, someone's gonna do it anyways. I may as well make it
earn
easier
from
for
it.
them to get.
Yeah,
It's the same thing. It comes to authors get so upset with piracy
yeah,
and worried about, oh, someone's gonna steal my book and stuff. Like, I'll be honest with you, if someone was gonna steal it, they were never gonna buy it. They were never gonna pay for it. So you didn't lose a customer. You gained a reader.
yeah,
And, I don't look at piracy as my enemy, but obscurity. And that I'm quoting from Cory Doctorow there, but obscurity is a bigger challenge than piracy. Because
yeah.
if I'm big enough that people wanna pirate my stuff, knock yourself out. I'm probably making enough money already.
Well, if your shit is worth stealing, it inherently has value, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's a proof that people want it. Um,
yeah, so make it accessible. I mean, I did a book, Campus Chills. It was a collection of horror stories. Set on campuses across Canada. I had 13 different authors do it, and we were using an espresso book machine, to produce this book. I don't know, have you heard of the espresso book machine?
mm-mm,
It's a machine. There's only about 300 in the world right now, but this I had the ninth in the world back in the aughts, and, at a university bookstore in Hamilton, and, it will print and bind a book from a digital file in about 15 minutes right on the spot, and it
mm,
looks just like a standard trade paperback. And so I wanted to show off. I had one at my bookstore, University of Edmonton bookstore had it, University of Waterloo bookstore had it. So we created an anthology that was only gonna be available at these 3 stores and made it available. And we did, like, simultaneous book launches, the same day and had authors in the store, and it was a just to try and show off this cool technology, break a world's record, that kinda thing. But I had a story from Kelly Armstrong, she's a Canadian horror author in there. And because she was very, very popular, I found a copy of a digital file, like somebody had scanned every page of this book and put it up on a BitTorrent site. And when that happened, I was so excited that they wanted the book so badly. I immediately rushed out and made the book available as a print on demand everywhere, as well as an ebook everywhere. So if someone wanted to get the book, they could get it at a reasonable price
mm.
because the effort to steal it was more than, "Oh, I'll just buy it for a couple bucks," right?
Yeah. What so is like, publishing other books, right? Like other people's work, the things that
Yeah,
they've, put their heart and soul into and everything is putting a lot of trust, I think,
yeah,
in the person who's handling all that for them or helping them do it. Um,
yeah.
so in your experience, do you feel like folks uh sort of come to you as like this guy knows what he's doing, or do you still have to do outreach consistently with your
Oh,
You're listening to KEEP in the Keep. Please take a moment to tell at least one other person how much you enjoy the show. That's right. Grab that link and send it to that buddy you're thinking of who you know would be interested in what we're talking about right now. Maybe post it somewhere. I know it seems scary, but you can do it. I believe in you. Don't hesitate to leave a comment and a 5-star review, a like, wherever you're listening. And if you want, Patreon supporters for this show get episodes early, access to our secret Discord channel, chances to suggest questions to our guests, our games, and whatever else I can do for you. Every little bit helps. This podcast directly supports my ability to do what I love and take care of my growing family. The link is in the show notes. Thank you, bless you, stay in the Keep.
But no, a lot of people come to me to help with their publishing needs. Now that particular project, Campus Chills, was
Uh,
one in which we had invested money, and I'd reached out to the authors and said, "Hey, if you write a story, I'll pay you professional rights for your story, and then you get the rights back, so you can use the story again in 9 months."
right.
And so that was like just like a traditional publisher, except without they weren't locked into a clause forever.
Mm,
But yeah, I have I guess word of mouth is such a popular thing. So oftentimes, because I do consult with clients and publishers and stuff like that, and often it will be somebody who I worked with who had a really good experience, and I helped guide them through the process. Okay, here's how you do it yourself.
yeah.
Here's how you find a good cover designer. Here's how you find a good editor to help make the book as good as you can. Here are the tools, the free tools you can use to publish this book. And then I'll have clients recommend other clients.
Mm,
So I had a shingle hung up at one of the like a freelance site to help people, but I got too much demand. I had to shut it off
yeah.
because I didn't have enough. Because again, I'm trying to write my own stuff at the same time while helping others, so I have to divide my time up, and that's the biggest challenge. Is there's only 24 hours in a day, and I've got about 72 hours worth of stuff to do every day.
It's one of the things that was told to me early on was that most businesses die of indigestion, not from starvation. So
Yeah,
there is no lack of work to be done out there. It's like how much can you handle before you crack under pressure or can't
yeah,
spread your logistics such that you can manage other people to do basically your job while you supervise
yeah.
them or God forbid you don't supervise them. But yeah. Uh,
No, no, exactly. I mean, I love the fact that we have that choice. I mean, I left full-time employment in 2017
Mhm.
because the income from writing and publishing and doing the consulting was more than enough to keep a roof over my head and food on the table.
Yeah. And a lot of people out there, when they think of becoming, I want to be an author, I'd really like to do that, or anything. They they tend to think you need to be like Stephen King or something, that you need to
Yeah,
be the guy in
yeah,
every
yeah,
airport or something like that in order to just get by. I'm like,
yeah.
you can make a really good living and basically like be not famous at all. You just
I
need to,
know.
yeah.
Yeah, I know thousands of authors
Mm,
who are making 5, 6, and 7-figure incomes from writing books. Nobody's heard of them, and yet they sell enough copies of their books.
Yeah,
This is independently,
sure.
right? You usually, if you're earning that kind of money as a traditionally published author, usually your name is a bit more known because your books are visible in airport bookstores and
Yeah.
stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. It seems like the secret sauce, this applies also in games, maybe to some extent now in music as well, is a high turnover rate because you're basically selling a body of work at any given time, right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
you're gonna be talking about whatever your latest book is, but the truth is that what we want is for someone who's interested in this book to go back and just read your entire library, and at that point, it's like,
yeah,
okay. But it's the same
yeah,
with games. Like, ideally, you just make as many games as you can, which is not what I've done at all, but
yeah,
ideally you do, and then eventually you get one that's a hit, and then people are like, "Oh my goodness, that studio or that
yeah,
designer, that publisher, whatever it is, makes good stuff," and then buys your whole library. And
yeah.
then for the rest of your life, as you accumulate more and more of that, you kind of ideally
Yeah, and
can stay
yeah.
relevant,
It
have a
stays
body of work.
sustainable, yeah. Well, there was a methodology, Michael Anderle, who's a military science fiction writer, or adventure science fiction, space opera kinda stuff. He had a book up on Amazon that when he looked at how well it was selling and how much money he was making, he said, if I have 19 other books that make this much money, I could make $50,000 a year."
Mhm.
So he created this movement called 20 books to 50K. And the idea was that, okay, if every book earns, but the challenge is not every book's going to earn that much money. So sometimes it takes 30 books or 40 books
Or
to get to.
sometimes one book is a hit, it makes up for the loss on another book. It's same
Exactly.
with
So
games.
on average, your
Mhm.
books are earning X number of dollars. I mean, I have 35 different books out there. Now, some of them especially the traditionally published ones. I mean, I just cashed a check from one of my publishers last week, which was kind of like, yeah, I made more on my self-published books last week than I made all year on on those books, because they will pay you in advance up front, and so that money, I get up front, as opposed to after the sales,
Mhm.
and so it's it's uh, it's different. But I also look at my income as a writer from being, multiple small streams of income as they're running down a hill, and then they all come into this larger river that all make up this larger force of income. And you can lose one or two or three or four. It's not going to be the end of the world because you have all of these different streams of income.
Mm.
And sometimes this stream's really heavy and sometimes this one's dried up. And the same thing happens with books too, right? So, but again, it comes back to the same thing that you talk about in the gaming community. I mean, I'll have a lot of people who just pick up one of my books and never come back because that's all they want to read. I
Right.
only want to read about haunted hospitals. I don't want to read about haunted bookstores. I don't want to read about haunted
Mm.
Ottawa, Ontario. I don't want to read about the ghosts of the Great Lakes. That's it. But other people are like, oh my God, I love his ghost stories. I'm going to read them all. I don't care if I've never been to Hamilton.
Sure.
I just want to read about it. Um, and you never know what you're gonna get. Or they may say, "Oh, wow, he's also written a werewolf series set in Manhattan. Oh, cool, I'm gonna check that out because I love werewolves."
Sure.
You never know where that's gonna go.
A lot of authors nowadays are even doing, like, subscription models. You mentioned having
Yeah,
a Patreon and, people using especially, like, nonfiction, like, journalist type stuff,
yeah,
people who are putting out editorials and essays. I mean, you
yeah,
could make quite a sum of money just writing.
yeah.
Um,
Substack as well, right, is another way of having that sort of you can have the free, and then you have the bonus content for those who,
yeah,
pay money.
but
Yeah,
so, like, in the in the games world, why do these models make sense when they have free to play games with all these little micro purchases and everything? But the reason is, like you were saying earlier, we could have one book that's not doing well and another one that makes up for it, hopefully in the margin, so you average out. And they figured the same thing with game players. It's like, okay, most people are going to download this app and never spend a dime, but
yeah,
the one out of 100 that spends $600 in a month on skins
yeah,
for his characters and stuff like that, and the season passes and all this. Like, that one person means on average, we made $10 per, person or something, and then they
yeah,
just figure it that way. And it's more sustainable because you can like, when you have a subscription model, you know how much money you have to work with.
yeah,
You're kind of like, "Alright, this is my bottom line, so I just need to keep
yeah.
it in this area." Um, yeah, it's weird. I'm thinking more and more how games don't like, you'll have an individual game that is a subscription service, but I have not seen any designers who will, like, if you subscribe to my thing, you'll just get every game, every prototype I make or whatever while I'm doing it.
Well, I
And
mean, that would have to be a really high-end one, right?
well, I think that there are a lot of people out there who enjoy, like, playing the alpha versions of games, like, the even
Oh,
some
for
of the
sure,
rudimentary.
yeah, yeah, because not only do you get to try it before anyone else does, but you get to provide valuable feedback
They
as
they
they're
wanna be
fixing things.
part
Yeah.
of the creation journey, so, like, if
Yeah,
they're
you feel proud of that, yeah,
sure. Yeah, and then they get their name in the credits and all that kinda thing, but it's like, yeah, like, you guys are the core kinda group of people who care about this, obviously, you're putting your money on the
yeah,
line, so, they basically become like a even in some professional companies now, like a segment of your QA department. It'd be like if your
yeah.
fans were your editors or something like that.
Well, it's like the early reading team, right?
Mhm,
So often, even after the book's edited or whatever and proofread, you still send it out to early readers, and they're gonna catch other things or
mhm,
give you some feedback,
yeah,
provide early reviews. The same thing with gamers, I imagine.
yeah.
And they're gonna be passionate about sharing it because it's kinda like, "Hey, this game, I was one of the alpha users."
Oh, yeah, I
You
was
know, I
in
was I
a
was
documentary for, like, 15 seconds, and I sent it to everyone in the world, like, "I'm on TV." Um,
yeah,
yeah, fi because people, me included, people like to feel like they're part of something, they're helping to
100%,
create
yeah,
it, and I think that's true, especially in games,
yeah,
because it's interactive. I mean,
yeah.
if they're not having fun playing it, then what are we doing? What
The
service are we
point,
really
yeah.
providing? Uh,
Well, you mentioned Patreon, so a friend of mine, Dal Wong, he writes Lit RPG, which is a huge, tie-in for
Sure.
people who love reading those books that because it brings you into the game world. And he has a Patreon, and he has some people who pay the highest possible level, and they'll get access to his books early before they're available for the public and stuff like that. But
Sure.
he was kind of reaching out to them saying, "Well, why are you giving me so much money? It's way more than you're getting back in value." And he's had people said, "I just want you to keep writing books because I love your stuff, and
Yeah.
so I want to support you by giving you money every month so that you don't stop."
Right. I
Because
mean,
again, they get enjoyment out of it. So they're like, "No." I mean, it's similar with my own podcast. I've reached out to people saying, "You're not ever taking advantage of the perks I give to my patrons." It's like, I don't care about the perks, I care about wanting to support you because 'cause you're doing really cool work that I know, I need it at one point. I don't really need it anymore, but I wanna support you. And it's just amazing when you get the right community, the right gamers, the right readers, the right fans who just want to support you. I mean, that's so amazing.
no, I've had the exact same experience in many cases where it's like, somebody one of the games that we were producing, I think there was a guy who gave $1,000 a month, which was, like, way
Yeah,
more than even our maximum tier. He just
yeah,
manually entered it in there, and then it, like, triggered something in Patreon that was asking for all this verification, so I'm like, "Hold on,
yeah.
we gotta go talk to this guy." Probably get him to
Is
fill
this
out a
legit?
W-9.
Yeah. Is this a
Yeah,
stolen credit card? Like, what is
yeah.
this?
Yeah, so I'm like, "Dude, do you realize that you're offering $1,000 a month? Like, we don't need that, like, it's okay." And, yeah, he's just like, "No, dude, I'm filthy rich, and I really wanna see your game get made." I'm like,
Yeah,
"Alright." And it's hard to remind people. I think a lot of people shortchange themselves when someone wants to come by. If you're a waitress or something and somebody gave you a $100 tip, I mean, the right thing to do is allow that person to give you whatever it is they can afford to give you and wanna give you.
yeah,
But there's this tendency to be like, "Oh, I don't deserve it." I
yeah,
Yeah, or but it's not even a matter of, like, whether or not you deserve it so much so is that the value of money is different depending on who you are and how much you have. So,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, if you have a friend who's a billionaire and he gives you $100,000 to start a business, um,
yeah,
first of all, what does he want out of it? But also, yeah,
yeah.
hopefully that's just something you make the best of and don't turn down the opportunity.
And that might be pocket change for him, whereas,
Right.
$100 from someone else could be like, well, that means they're gonna have to go without something else, right?
Yeah. The other thing is, like, man, if you can afford to do that, like, how much are you giving to charity? Like, I wanna ask those
Yeah,
kinds of questions, like, or, what
yeah,
what better could we do than support a video game? What could we do with
yeah,
this
yeah.
$1,000 a month to make the world a better place? And then
Although I'm gonna argue, I think the world is made better.
mm,
Storytellers, and I include storytellers, musicians, artists, writers, game developers, designers, etc.
yeah,
We make the world a better place because we give people something fun to engage with. We get them to think, we get them to play, we get them inspired,
yeah,
and I think I know it's not practical like medicine or caring for other people or looking after whatever or providing people who need affordable housing and food and stuff like that. But we also inspire the people by giving them something entertaining or inspiring. And that, in and of itself, I do know that there's studies that say that those who read fiction, for example, are more empathetic.
mhm,
Right? When you play in a video game and you're in the role of another character, another persona, another person, you're gaining these additional skills that may make you a better human. In which case, then that serves society in a positive way.
mhm,
So, yeah, yeah, that money. Like, I hope you're giving money to charity or good causes, but I also think that
yeah,
the world needs those storytellers, right?
yeah. No, I think that I mean, for me as a kid, it was definitely books, like, that just took me away to another universe, and I think
Yeah,
yeah, I think that, like, especially in fiction when you're reading someone's encounter with another person, but you're getting this sort of meta point of view of, like, emotion and the details of, like, how I felt when I was about to say all of that stuff, it stays with you, it definitely sticks in your mind, and I think games get kinda put into a certain category because of, like, first person shooters, that kinda thing.
yeah,
And I like first person shooters, don't get me wrong, but primarily what people see when they look at it is just shooting people's
Violence.
heads off and violence.
Do they
Whereas it
see the teamwork? Do
right.
they see the strategy?
I
Right? Like, there's a lot going on there.
I would even say, like, do they see the stories that are being told? And I'm not gonna argue in favor of, like, Call of Duty necessarily and that kinda stuff, but,
Yeah,
I mean, if you're playing, like, you mentioned, like, role-playing games, yeah, RPGs and stuff like that. I mean, you could
yeah,
have an emotional life journey happen to you
yeah,
that will bring you to tears, in front of a computer screen at certain points
yeah.
that I recently played this game that I think everyone, even if you're mildly interested in games, should try, Disco Elysium, which is a role-playing game, but, like, the level of writing and storytelling and, the challenges that it asks you to think about while you're playing through this game. There's a few others, maybe like, Outer Worlds or something like that, where you never in your life other than in a game like this are you gonna know what it's like to travel out into a solar system and pilot a ship and go
Yeah,
on this emotional journey of uncovering everything that's happened that led up to a supernova or so that can only happen in sort of in a simulated environment, and yet the emotion that you experience is real.
yeah.
Um, for in your case, I mean, it doesn't seem like you're really doing, like, shock horror or anything like that. You're kinda documenting real life stuff, but people, um do you find people, like, really emotionally reacting to some of the work that you've done?
Yeah, I mean, probably my best-selling I have, one horror novel, which is very shock horror,
Ah,
and the collection One Hand Screaming, which is kinda like, American Horror Story meets Black Mirror meets Twilight Zone, so it's
sure.
somewhere in there.
Yeah,
Like, there's some disturbing, things, but there's always some elements, of thoughtfulness. There's always some elements of what you've learned, or there's some sort of lesson or whatever. I mean, some of the stories, I have some people read them and go, "Oh my god, you're twisted. You're sick." It's like, "No, I'm just exorcising the demons. I'm just exploring a fear."
yeah,
And I put all that in there. But I've found for the most part, because with One Hand Screaming, at the end of the book, for every single story, I explain what inspired the story, the circumstances around it, like something I saw, something I read, I thought about. For example, one of my most award-winning ones was called Phantom Mitch, and it was about the concept of a phantom itch. So, folks who've lost an appendage will sometimes feel an itch on, the hand that doesn't exist anymore.
sure,
And so my premise with that story was, well, what if it existed in the other world? And so I had this guy who was in a car accident with his wife. His wife dies, and he loses his left arm, and suddenly he's feeling his dead wife holding the dead hand that he doesn't have anymore, and he's trying to explain to other people, like, "No, I can touch her, I can feel her, I can," and whatever, and there's this beautiful, haunting love story, with this premise based on this, I guess, phenomenon that happens, and we
sure.
don't know how to explain what a phantom itch is. So I'm like, I tried to explain it, and I came up with a story, and that was actually my first published horror story that received, honorable mention in the year's best fantasy and horror that year,
Right.
and continuing to this day, because most people have never read the story. When people read it, they're like, "Oh, wow, it's a touching love story, but it's also disturbing."
Yeah. Yeah, it's really amazing how, you have authors, like, even classical authors, Asimov or Philip K. Dick or something like that, where they have these huge reservoirs of books that they've written, and it's like, okay, somebody gets into The Man in the High Castle, and then the next thing you
Yeah,
know, you're talking about some obscure, like, short story that he published maybe, like, years before
yeah,
or later in life or whatever. Asimov, like, everybody knows I, Robot and Foundation and all that stuff, and I'm always like, "Oh, dude, The Last Question was just the best freaking story of all time."
yeah.
Hidden away in Nowheresville. Um, and then I think Lovecraft is another author that gets dissected in the same way.
Oh, yeah, yeah, and Ray Bradbury as well. His short
Yeah,
stories are just phenomenal,
yeah,
in terms of just, like, the places he took you,
sure.
as well. And they're like, and I grew up on those. I grew up on those classic science fiction
Mm,
tales, the Philip K. Yeah, honestly, Philip K. Dick, Isaac Asimov, Ray Bradbury, even, Charles Grant as a horror writer. There's so many, other I guess, writers who've done really creepy, short fiction as well that have been inspiring. I still love returning to short fiction. Now I'm a judge of the Writers of the Future contest, which is science fiction, fantasy, and horror. And so I'm very lucky that every year I get to read dozens and dozens of stories that get filtered and sent to me with, like, I don't know who the authors are. And the quality of these stories is amazing. Like, there's still great short stories being published, and written every year, and I guess I'm lucky that I already get, by the time they get to me, they've already been filtered through, Jody Lynn Nye and a series of, early readers. So the judges are only, like, getting the best of the best, and it's amazing what people can do in, 2,000 to 8,000 words.
Sure. And your kind of particular niche, I reckon. Did you decide to write about ghost stories and horror stuff because
Mm,
that's genuinely what you were interested in to begin with, or was it
yeah.
like kind of chasing an audience?
No, honestly, I I'm scared of the dark. I'm actually always fascinated by the macabre and trying to understand, like, what
Mm,
was that? That you
sure.
can't explain this. I'm always intrigued by that. So when I started writing fiction, I kept just turning to the dark side, and I kept, like, just exploring. I tried to write a normal story, and then all of a sudden something in the shadows would intrigue me, and I'd go chasing after it.
Mm,
And I always thought that was maybe therapy. And I mean, like, One Hand Screaming, the original version of that 20 years ago, which is half the size, was my very first book in 2004. Ironically, my very first published story was a YA humor piece, but my very second one was a horror. And and it wasn't until, 13 years ago that I released my first true ghost story book, and I never knew I was gonna do that. When I was younger, I wrote, a short story called From Out of the Night, which was about a middle-aged guy who spent his life writing about UFOs and Bigfoot and monsters and stuff like that, and I wrote it as a teenager, imagining this old guy trapped in a lifestyle of trying to write these scary stories. Little did I know I would become that middle-aged guy writing, true ghost stories, and the when I wrote Haunted Hamilton, I'd moved to Hamilton, Ontario with my wife, went on a ghost walk, and was so fascinated by the stories they told, because it also taught me a bit. I was new to the city. I learned a little bit about history of the foundation of the city and the different buildings, and even the War of 1812, which was very prominent in that area of Ontario. And I went and I learned that history, you can't tell a good ghost story without history, and so that was fascinating. It was the first time I was ever interested in history, and so, I talked to the folks, because I was a bookseller and a writer. I was like, "You guys should write a book about this. This is so cool." And they're like, "We're too busy running our business. Why don't you write a book and we'll give you access to our research?" And I was like,
mm,
"Well, that sounds cool." So they give me access to their files and the research and stuff like that. And I went on all the ghost walks, and then I just pitched it to a publisher and I said, "Hey, there's a market for this.
mm,
I'd love to write a book." And that's how it started. So it was I guess my desire and my passion for creepy tales and collecting stories like
mm,
that. And I still do. When I go to a new city, two of my favorite things to do, I will always seek out a local brewery. I'm a big fan of craft beer.
mm.
But if there's a ghost walk and I'm in town when they're doing ghost walks, I'll see if I can book because then I can learn more about the town or the city,
Yeah.
and I can get creeped out.
We need to get you down to, Bisbee, Arizona. It's like one of the most amazing little towns in all of America, but yeah, they do. They'll take you around on a golf cart to see, like, all the mine chefs and everything. They have all these amazing ghost stories, and then yeah,
Sounds
so
amazing.
if you're into craft brewery, you should do it during the beer festival. It's
Yeah,
like a
no
walk.
kidding. One of my favorites was, in Portland, in Oregon, years ago.
Yeah,
My partner and I, we went on it was a Books and Brews a ghostly tour. So
yeah,
it was craft beer and ghosts. It was like two of my favorite things. I'm like, I'm in, baby.
yeah,
We did this, haunted fisherman's restaurant. We tried a different beer there, and we went to this haunted pizza place that had craft beer, and it was such a cool tour.
yeah.
Like that's the best.
I think Bisbee had, like, this thing that was called, like, the Bisbee 10,000 or something like that, where so the town is sort of in the mountains in Southern Arizona, and
Right.
you you show up, you run a marathon through the town, which includes
Wow.
all of the stairs. So they counted, I don't know, 10, whatever it is,
10,000
stairs.
stairs.
And
Wow.
then at the end of the run is this huge beer festival where like all of the breweries in the area are
Wow.
there. So yeah, it's just one of those like I don't recommend people drink a lot, but when in my early 20s, yeah, I was in Arizona and that's totally what I would see. Yeah, let's go run this fucking
When
marathon,
you
man.
you run the marathon, then you throw up, and then you
Yeah.
have room for
And
beer.
you
Yeah, okay.
fill yourself up with alcohol. Yeah.
Maybe
Um
maybe a little bit of water first.
Well, so the thing is most they give you, just for participating, they give you, like, a bunch of tickets because you have to give a ticket for
Yeah,
every beer that you get or, whatever, and they're sample size beers,
yeah.
but still,
They
most
add up.
people don't use 20 tickets, so on the way out, they're just handing them out to people, so you
Yeah.
could s be there all day.
I've
Um,
taken advantage of that at some, I've done the Warrior Dash where they do that, and the people, who don't wanna drink would usually give me the chits because 'cause I'm wearing a costume. And
yeah,
they're like, "Hey, nice costume," and so it's like I never had to buy a beer all
yeah,
day.
just all day long, yeah. I did that at a esports festival I went to in Sweden. I just Like, I wrote the guys that were organizing the event, and they had all this sign-up sheets and, amounts you needed to pay for all the different things, and I was like, "Listen, I'm not bringing a computer, I just wanna watch and observe and help out, and that's all I'm gonna do."
Yeah.
So I just showed up, walked right in the front door, and slept there for the entire weekend, and they gave me free meal vouchers and free beer vouchers, like, throughout the whole stay, and
There
I was
you
like,
go.
"I think I landed on planet Venus or something, like, this is just crazy." And in Sweden, no less, so it's just a bunch of weird they're not only are they Swedish, they're also introverted gamers by Swedish standards, so it's just the
Oh, wow.
weirdest thing you ever saw. Um, no, so with that first endeavor into publishing a book, you now you know what your thing is, you're gonna be doing paranormal research
Yeah,
and stuff. So,
yeah.
what's like the sophomore album? You get a hit the first time, what do you do after that?
Oh, man, was the first book I did was the horror stories.
Right,
The second one I did, I edited a science fiction anthology for a small publisher in Canada, and that was more like reading submissions and getting it out there. So that was just more of a palate cleanser
sure.
because it was not as much of work. It was more me reading and deciding which stories I thought were great. And then the next one was me doing my own anthology. That was the Campus Chills.
Mm,
And then again, experimenting with some small collections of short stories. Like, oh, okay, I got some other short stories. Let's put them together in I call a digital chapbook, a little 100-page collection of just 3 or 4 stories on a theme. And it wasn't, yeah. I didn't release. Let me see, the novel I Death, which is a horror novel that came out in 2014. By
mm,
then, I had published 3 true ghost story books,
right,
like Haunted Hamilton, and then I did Spooky Sudbury, a city where I grew up, mining, the nickel capital of the world, actually.
sure.
Mining town I grew up in. Um,
There's
and then
always
I
high strangeness around mines, mine shafts, anywhere where the earth is
well,
opened
yeah.
up,
And
holes.
also,
Yeah,
yeah, and Sudbury is a hotbed of UFO activity,
mm,
especially in the 50s, 60s, 70s.
yeah,
It was just I thought there'd be a chance. So it was funny. You plan out a book, and I'm like, okay, Sudbury's got some haunted mines and haunted theater and haunted this and blah 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 blah. And I thought, well, I co-authored this book with a journalist who was working for one of the papers up there at the time. And I thought, okay, we'll have one chapter on UFOs, and I'll write that one because we kind of planned out what we're going to do.
mm,
And as I started doing the research and digging into the old archives of the newspapers and stuff like that, I was like, I ended up having 4 chapters on UFO activity in Sudbury. And there's different theories. Like, is there something in the nickel in the ground
mm,
that is attracting alien?
yeah,
Is there something? Is there something else? Like, is the nickel in the ground affecting people's brains and they're seeing things in the
mm,
sky? Like, you don't know what it is, but I do know, and I was alive for this. I was young when this happened, but in the early '70s, the U.S. Air Force actually sent fighter jets from Colorado up to Sudbury to intercept 3 unknown flying objects. Now, I believe they probably thought there were Russians coming in from the north, but it was over Creighton Mine in Sudbury, like a major nickel deposit area. in the city, and I got a hold of some of the documents, and the redaction on the reports for that are just like it's all black with just 6 words on the whole page that you can actually read.
Mm.
And so it's kinda like something weird happened that nobody's talking about over Sudbury in, like, 1974, 1976, something like that, and it was so impactful because it was 3 different reports from 3 different, entities that reported it, and the US actually sent Air Force jets up to Canada to intercept. Something's going on there, and again, what I love about that is nobody knows, right? So you can share the story, and you're like, "Well, we can speculate," right?
Just something as simple as that, the US covers Canadian airspace for things like
Yeah.
that is not widely discussed or talked about.
Yeah, well, I mean, we had this huge partnership in terms of looking out for one another, right?
Yeah,
Like, providing, we collaborating on creating stuff, and but also, the protection was really important.
right. You guys send
Um,
us maple syrup and we will guard your airspace.
yeah, maple syrup and poutine, right?
Yeah. No, I was a weather forecaster for the Air Force for a long time, and that's
Okay.
one of our responsibilities was, like, Western Canada. It was just
Yeah, keep an eye, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
like,
yeah,
Western air defense, I mean, talking,
yeah,
like, military shit. So, basically, the entire West Coast of from Alaska all the way down, is
it's monitored, yeah,
a huge mission for the
yeah.
Air Force. Like, it's
Oh,
anything
for
enters this
sure, yeah.
airspace, we put a million
We
jets and
got it,
bombs.
yeah. Well, you also have Alaska up there too, right?
Yeah. Every year on Christmas, Russia flies some jets right up to the coast of Alaska and turn around just to
Wow,
see what our reaction time is every year.
wow. Yeah,
Um, so
amazing.
yeah, and that's, we kinda share that area, so we gotta work together on that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Keep an eye on that.
so you're doing fiction and you're doing true ghost story stuff, and I wonder,
Yeah.
what's the writing process different, from fiction to nonfiction, so to speak?
Well, so the fiction's interesting because, in my most popular series, the Canadian Werewolf
Mm,
series, I'm making stuff up. But the guy lives in Manhattan, and he turns into a full-sized, like a gray wolf, during the full moon. So the research I'm doing isn't related to, okay, I need to find out what happened where, but I need to go, what are the cycles of the moon? Because I'm setting it at certain times. And what were the weather conditions in
mm,
Manhattan on this day? What was the moon cycle? So I have the moon apps to figure out,
mhm,
would Michael turn into a wolf on this day or that day? Because it's only when the moon is at 75% or more that he turns into a wolf. So that's like the 10 days. And all of these logistics are similar in that I research them just as heavily as I research, looking into the stories of what happened, and digging into newspaper reports and interviewing people and stuff like that. Now, there's even a scene in one of my Canadian werewolf novels. I think that might have been, Fright Night's Big City, um, or it was Fear and Longing in Los Angeles. I can't remember. No, they were back in New York in this one, so it was in Manhattan, and I had a scene where somebody ran into the washroom, and someone else needed to chase after them because they heard them yell out, and I needed to know this particular restaurant in Manhattan. Were the bathrooms on the main level? Were they upstairs? Were they downstairs? Because I'd never been in there. And so I had some photos of the place so I could get some logistics of what this diner looked like. But I needed to get the research from somebody who'd actually been there because I wanted it to be realistic. Just like Dean Koontz used to say, um, if you have a gun in a scene, and they operate the safety, and the safety's in a different position than you describe it, you're gonna lose the reader completely because they're gonna get kicked out of the story. Because somebody who knows that gun is gonna understand that, and I take that very seriously. When I have, characters walking through streets in Manhattan or LA or wherever, even though I've been there, I still
mm,
go on Google Maps to the date and time because you can kinda see what building was there, was there a building there? What business was on that building? I need them to be realistic. I'm pretty anal about that. And, like, how long it takes to get if you're in a taxi and you're heading from Midtown to Brooklyn, like, how long is it gonna take on a taxi versus a subway versus a bike? Those are, I get really I get really anal about that. So it's almost like even though I'm making stuff up, because apparently werewolves don't exist, or at least do they? I haven't seen one myself. Um, I'm making stuff up, but I'm also wanting it to be as realistic as possible.
Mm,
So whether I'm researching for, ghost stories of the Great Lakes, and I want to dig into details and interview people, I'm still talking to people. I'm still getting details. I'm even speaking to police. Like in this particular case, what would an officer's reaction be? What would a detective's reaction be? How would they interact with people? Those elements are really important for me.
mm. Do you, do you find that I mean, saying something like, werewolves don't exist, right?
Yeah.
Um,
I haven't seen one yet.
right, yeah, yeah. Do you find that working on all of these stories and talking to all these different people makes you believe more or less? And
Both.
okay.
So here's an example. Uh, One of the research I remember doing research, and it was a story about Victoria's. I called it Victoria's cabinet.
Mhm.
As old Victorian cabinet where there was this young
She kept
girl
her
with a blue.
secret there.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Victoria kept her secret. And it was because it was a Victorian, cabinet, and it was like the mirror, the ghost was often seen in this museum, this little girl fixing her hair in the bow, and the minute she made eye contact with you, the ghost would disappear. So that was a really cool story. I never ended up putting it in any book because it didn't match any of the themes I was working on, but I wrote a short story inspired by that true ghost story.
Mm,
So, I find that, some of the stories I research again, I have researched werewolves enough, the mythology of werewolves from different cultures.
mm,
Even, World War II and the attempt to create super soldiers and stuff like that with the Nazi army and all of that stuff. I've done a lot of the research into werewolves, um, and what they might be if, in certain cultures of what could have caused this element, but I haven't actually ever written about.
You're listening to KEEP in the Keep. If you love this show and you love supporting indie video games, please take a moment to check out In the Keep's upcoming Stellar Valkyrie. Built in the GZ Doom engine, this retro first-person shooter puts you in the universe of space bird bounty hunter Falco, who is on a mission to save his ex-girlfriend from the evil Black Star cult. Just type birdgame.space, that's BIRD game.space into your browser. Hit enter, smash the wishlist button, and stay tuned.
Werewolves in a true paranormal book. I've only ever leveraged it for fiction. But I'd still end up doing a lot of research. And sometimes the research goes into a true ghost story book or a paranormal book, and sometimes it's fuel for fiction.
Mm, yeah, I find it's especially with things like werewolves, vampires, you have to you have to keep things vague, right? So
Yeah.
if you go full Twilight where you start getting into the particulars about what the rules are of being a vampire and all that kind of thing, it takes a lot of the magic away from horror. I mean, you could still tell great stories like that, don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, from the
la
horror. Yeah, the horror is the unknown, right?
right. Like Lovecraft, but we brought him up earlier, was really, really, really in tune with the idea that like the less you tell someone about something, like all he ever told you about anything he wrote about was you couldn't. I can't even put it into words, man. You wouldn't believe it.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
crazy. Like you just, I don't even have. Yeah, and that for whatever reason that just makes it all the more scary because you can't like identify it. You can't make it in your head. Um, I got really, I got really fascinated with werewolves recently because I take I take vampires pretty seriously. At least from the standpoint of like there I'm not saying there's people who literally suck people's blood, although there are, but I'm talking about as
yeah,
like a manifestation of something supernatural.
yeah, yeah,
But the archetype of a vampire is a real thing. Like there are people who just want to
yeah.
drain you, whether that be for money, energy, goodwill,
Energy vampires, yeah, I think
yeah, yeah,
I've read a lot more about those and included those in some ghost story books.
yeah.
But I haven't actually in my research encountered like actual blood draining vampires.
Well, the interesting thing about it is from the from the old stories when you talk about them like sucking your blood or whatever, they didn't originally like get out of the grave and literally bite your neck and stuff. Like we're talking medieval time frame, Bohemia, and
Yeah,
Transylvania, Eastern Europe in general. The stories were like they're dead and in the grave, and they're sucking your energy,
yeah,
literally your blood, but I mean your life force
yeah,
through
yeah,
the ether, essentially. And
yeah,
then over time, that became, Dracula biting a woman's neck and all that kind of stuff.
yeah,
But the archetype, the meaning of that being that, there are things, creatures, people, whatever out there who will take everything away that you have and drain your life.
yeah.
That is at least psychologically real. And then I never thought about vampires in that context until I was taking a class on astral travel. And it was it was just the subject that it wasn't like, "We're gonna learn how to astral travel." It was just like studying,
Yeah, yeah,
"Okay, well, this is
yeah,
what Ledbetter said about astral travel," or something,
yeah, 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 yeah.
like scholarly standpoint. But, they brought up werewolves, and I was like, "Man, I never thought about that." But, yeah, like you were saying earlier, you go through all these different cultures all around the world, and there's some form of, like, the canine cryptid
Yeah,
thing. And then so one of the questions I asked the teachers, like, "Okay, I think we all kinda get the vampire thing. What is a werewolf?" And
yeah.
that was a whole can of worms I've never even went down. But it seems to be ubiquitous and worldwide. Like, everywhere that
It
there are
is,
wolves,
and
canines.
so many different theories. I mean, even look at some indigenous. What's the creature? Oh my God. There's the creature that's always hungry. Oh my God, I'm blanking on the name.
It's not
Um,
coming to me either.
but it's kind of like almost like a ghoul that's based on like starvation and stuff, based on real things that have happened to
Mm,
people. And and that very similar to what the werewolf is it's this hunger, it's this desire, but then there's also theories or elements of, and I've played with this in one of my books. So I have Michael's he has no memory of when he's a wolf. He just turns into the wolf and he runs around in Central Park on all fours and blah blah blah, does all those things. He wakes up and he finds his clothes and he goes and tries to live his life, but he has superpowers as a human because had to be interesting somehow. He had to have
sure,
extrasensory stuff otherwise.
sure. Like the
Just
Spider-Man.
living with the side effects is not enough. He had to have some adventures as a human. But I had an element where something was affecting him where he couldn't turn into a wolf. And the repression of this animal need to run around and chase rodents and rabbits and kill rabbits and do all this stuff turned him into a hostile person. And
Mm,
he's like, jokingly describe him as he's an alpha man, but a beta, or alpha wolf, but a beta man.
sure.
Right. So he's like this mild, he's this pushover Clark Kent kind of person, but as a wolf, he's like this tough alpha character. So when he represses the wolf and doesn't become the wolf, that manifests in his human form. And it almost beats somebody to death when he gets into a fight because he can't control the animal rage. And so there's some stuff in there about the werewolf legend that's this inner beast that we have to control, by letting it out at certain times.
Right.
That was
The th
fun. I had a lot of fun of playing with that one.
Yeah, there's that sort of Incredible Hulk factor to it where
Yeah,
you like, what's interesting about the Incredible Hulk is not the Incredible Hulk, it's Bruce Banner emotionally dealing with being the Incredible Hulk.
exactly, and it's funny, I was thinking, it was weird, a lot of that character was based on the Bruce Banner, at least from the original TV series, more so, and even some of the stuff from, Wolverine's, special powers and features, so I had a hell of a lot of fun incorporating some of those, elements into the books.
What's the your own story aside, what's the best werewolf media story? It could be a TV
Mm.
show, a movie, a book, a short story, whatever, but just
You know what? There was a series on, and I think was it Amy Adams who was in it?
mm,
A Wolf Like Me? Is that the
that sounds familiar.
that was so much fun. I really enjoyed that. Now, a friend of mine, Ado van Belkom, Canadian horror author,
Sure.
His novels, the Wolfpack novels, which were a YA series he published over 15 years ago, those were amazing. And they were turned into a TV series on Paramount Plus a couple of years ago, starring Sarah Michelle Gellar, Wolfpack.
Mm.
They only made one season of it, and I was so upset because they ended season one, and you're like, oh my God, I can't wait to see what happens next. And the series got canceled. But it's about these four teenagers who were rescued wolf cubs when they were little in a massive forest fire by a forest ranger, and he raises them as his own, like he adopts them and raises them, and keeps the fact that they turn into wolves hidden.
Sure.
So as they're growing up, they're not sure why, and they can't quite, as they, teenagers and hormones and stuff, and they suddenly turn into wolves, but they can do it at will. And honestly, I really, really loved that adaptation. But even the novels were different, but really good too.
Yeah. I really love American Werewolf in London. I think that's
Oh, I
one.
mean, that's a classic.
Yeah.
But
It it
it's horror and humor
it hits
and
all the high marks too. It
yeah,
tells a complete story, whereas,
it
like
does.
the Wolf Man.
You're right. That is a beautiful classic. That's one of the
Yeah,
best, actually. It's why I named that one novel A Canadian Werewolf in New York, because I
sure.
was riffing on this classic film,
Yeah.
which it still holds up to this day. Even the special effects were pretty significant for when you think about when that movie was.
The transformation scene in American Werewolf in London, and it may be the closest other thing to it around that time frame would have been The Thing, like John Carpenter,
Yeah,
had the
yeah. But the transformation is so painful.
yeah, it feel
Right,
like
and that inspired, like, I have my guy block it out. He doesn't even remember
yeah,
the transformation, that's how painful it is. So it's, like, perfect. It
yeah.
blocks it from his mind.
That's what's so crazy about it is that you think about a werewolf, very rarely are you thinking empathetically about what the werewolf is going through, and then
Yeah.
so, like, to tell the story from the perspective of, like, it's so painful when it happens, and I
Yeah.
can't control the things that I wanna do and all that stuff. It's so different than the just it's a vague monster that we have to shoot with a silver bullet all day.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that's one of the things I liked about American Werewolf in London too, is you had that empathy for the character
sure.
as well.
How do you tell a true ghost story from an untrue ghost story?
Oh, geez.
Mm,
Uh, that's so difficult. I mean, here's the challenge, and even true ghost stories, this is so true. You take a kernel of truth and you wrap it in a bunch of storytelling aspects, and you exaggerate and play around.
mm,
Because again, to tell a good ghost story, you've got to have the beginning, middle, and the end, and the rising action, and all those things
mm,
that make fiction what it is.
right.
So it's really difficult to tell a good one from a false one. The challenge I have as a researcher is sometimes something just doesn't smell right.
Mhm,
You know, I remember writing Murder Mansion in Hamilton. Oh, I'll give you the story very quickly, but there was a mansion up on Hamilton Mountain, overlooked the escarpment, overlooked the city down below, because that's where the Niagara Escarpment goes. And in the middle of the night, this man went into the shed, grabbed the axe, and he butchered his family. And then he went up to the widow's walk on the third floor and he hung himself. And as the story goes, the next family that moved into the house, teenage boy found the axe in the shed, did the same thing to his family. Now, this house is a house that had been abandoned for 20 years and finally torn down. There were stories that people had that they saw a woman look like her hair was on fire and she was running past the windows on the second floor, like being chased by someone. And there are all these stories, and kids would not go near the house and stuff. And so when I found these stories, I started to do research, and as I'm researching it, I reached out to the police because I couldn't find any indication of an axe murder happening on Hamilton Mountain in any of the newspaper or anything. You'd think it would be in the newspaper, right?
right, right,
Not only that, but I mean, it's only common sense that if an axe was used in a murder, it would probably be locked in an evidence closet, not be put back in the shed
right,
for the next family. So as I'm writing this chapter, I actually explained the 3 pages of research of what I did to disprove that this was obviously just made up, but it's a cool story. And I tied it into the fact that the stories came out, because this happens a lot. The stories came out around the time of Stanley Kubrick's The Shining.
Mhm.
where Jack is running around with an axe chasing his family at a remote, right? And I noticed even in a lot of the UFO stories, a lot of the stories that were shared around the time were based on pop culture things that were going on. Like we're inspired by other things in our lives. So I, for me, to when I write a ghost story, if I find that I don't think this is real, I want to share that because I want the reader to have faith that if I can't explain something, I wanna say, "Here's why we can't explain this," and that's what makes it fascinating. But if
Right.
I can't explain it, I want to explain it so I have a bit more credibility. Now my editor said, "You can't do that." And I was like, "What do you mean? I wanna be credible." Editor's like, They don't want to ruin the suspension of disbelief." So I ended up cutting that down. I still explained that I couldn't find any evidence. I didn't break down all the details of what I found.
Mhm.
And at the end, I ended it said, "So it's probably not real, but still a cool story, huh?" And that's the challenge, like to not include it or to share it and say, "Yeah, we actually found out that this is what caused that phenomenon. So it's probably not a ghost, but it's still kind of creepy, isn't it?" I like including those wherever I can.
Sure. Yeah, it's really cool how you mentioned pop culture influencing what people report, right? And the age old question with that is that um, is the phenomena appearing to people in a way that they can understand or put words to,
Mm,
or the people looking for things that aren't there that but because they were influenced by TV or books or something like that.
yeah,
And that it's really weird. Like Jung wrote a lot about flying saucers back in his time. It's just kind of
yeah.
saying like this is gonna become more and more of a thing. And in the 40s, after Roswell or something like that, people talked about seeing flying saucers and little green men. And then, there are sort of these kind of stepping stones. It's like, is the thing changing? Is the way we're experiencing the thing changing, or are we just fooling ourselves into whatever it is that we
Uh,
want to see?
I think
Um,
a little bit of everything. I One of the most fascinating stories, have you heard of Dr. Stanley Persinger and the God helmet?
yes, yes.
So, Sudbury, Ontario, where there's a chapter on him because he was working at Laurentian University and the God helmet. And I was so fascinated by his research so it's the helmet, the Skidoo helmet, the snow machine helmet with the electrodes, putting
Yes,
someone in like a dark isolation kind of room and then triggering certain parts of the brain.
right.
And it triggers um, the being waking up paralyzed, having either the stories of the old hag woman pressing on your chest and trying to take your breath, aliens standing at your bed, demons,
Mm.
ghosts, and it's so fascinating that the study showed that depending upon the person's preconceived notions of spirituality or the belief in extraterrestrials, whatever it was that they were triggering, the same thing triggered different responses.
Yeah. So
I'm
that's a
so
known
the
thing in psychic research, though, uh,
Yeah,
that people superimpose something they can't understand over a blank.
on this phenomenon. Yeah, so
Right.
what
So
is the phenomenon, but how do they interpret it? And it's interpreted based on those stories they already have, which
right.
it's how else can you understand it, right? So I was just fascinated by that because then I started looking at the East Coast stories of the old hag, and that it's a phenomenon that happens when we were in sleep paralysis and we wake up, and there's still that drug running through our system that paralyzes our bodies while we sleep so we don't hurt ourselves when we're dreaming.
Mm.
And it's kinda like and when you wake up in that state where you're still paralyzed and you feel like there's something oppressive there, like that's a natural thing that happens to us, but sometimes if other phenomena, exist, that can trigger potentially, there's somebody standing over my bed,
Yeah,
and I'm
and
sure almost everyone's experienced that in some way, shape, or form.
it's the same chicken and the egg scenario as, like, whether or not we were created as a, universe where it's like, "Okay, well, what happened before the Big Bang?" And then it's the same thing
Yeah,
with sleep paralysis. Like, "Oh, okay,
yeah.
cool that you've explained the chemical in my body that is causing me to be still when I wake up in the middle of a dream, but that doesn't mean something didn't cause it to happen," especially when you're
Yeah,
talking
what
medical.
caused me to wake up?
Yeah.
Yeah,
What
yeah, that's the thing, what caused me to wake up?
yeah.
Like, I know even in the house where we live in, my partner, she had said, remembering waking up and there was someone standing over in the corner.
Mm.
and she's not one to believe in paranormal things, and she can't explain why it was that she was convinced there was someone standing over there, a human,
Mm.
with ill intent, because you could feel it just oozing out of him. But it was like that was a weird kind of experience. So, and again, she's not predisposed to believe in paranormal things. So when somebody's convinced that there was something there, like what the heck was that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the only thing is to tell her the truth. That the shadow people are always around you, and they
Of
always
course, yeah.
all at all. You should take your iron
And
pills.
don't
Uh, you know,
the
and
boogeyman is under your bed, so be careful. So don't dangle. Like we don't even have it under the bed. We have the box spring and the mattress there because nothing can hide under our bed. Thank God.
yeah, you could just never be too careful with these things. Like
Yeah. No.
yeah, I
Exactly.
was telling someone recently, I have like iron railroad spikes in front of every doorway and stuff,
There you go.
just just in case.
Just in
Um,
case. Yeah. Salt.
yeah, they
Sprinkle
don't.
around. Yeah.
There's certain
Yeah.
things they don't seem to like, and that's
Honestly, you know what? Better safe than sorry, right?
yeah, that's genuinely how I feel about it too.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I was a lot braver, and I was like, "Pff, I'm not scared of nothing like that.
Oh,
That'll
geez.
never happen." Yeah, the older I get, the more I'm like, yeah, I'll put the crystals in the window. I'll,
No, when we go on ghost walks, I remember we were in Ottawa at one of the most haunted buildings. It was like an old jail, an old jail from
mm,
back in the day. And we're doing the tour, and Liz was so excited to want to go off and explore things about away from the group. And I'm like, no way, I'm getting in the center of the group because if anything is coming and picking people off, I want to be protected by the rest of you.
mm.
Like I'm genuinely terrified of things like that. So I'm not brave. I will hide.
What in your own experience, like, what's the most convincing thing you've seen?
So, years ago, Liz and we drove down to Florida from Ontario for a romance writers conference because I speak at industry events all the time,
Mhm.
and she works in education, so she was off in the summer, and we were driving down, and on the way back, I just released the book Haunted Hospitals, which I co-authored with Rhonda Parrish,
Mm,
and we'd written about the in West Virginia, in Weston, West Virginia, the Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum.
sure.
Beautiful old building. And so on the drive back, we took a drive down and we did some beer places and haunted places along the way because we took like 4 days to go down. But coming back, we wanted to do it in 2 days. So it was like a 14-hour drive from Miami or, yeah, to, Orlando, I should say, up to Weston. And we get in around 1 in the morning, and she's driving, and we're coming through the mountains in the clouds. And the next day in the morning, there's a 9 a.m. tour, the tour of the criminally insane wing or whatever, and was like so excited to do that because I wanted to take pictures with a copy of the book and stuff because I had not researched that chapter. Rhonda wrote that chapter, so all I knew was the proofreading I did. I didn't have all the detailed research that didn't end up in the story. So we at 1 in the morning, we pull in front of this one hotel and the parking lot's jam packed. I run out and run into the lobby and I was like, "Hey, do you guys have a room?" And they're like, "Nah, we're all filled up. But there's an Econo Lounge just like a mile down the road. You'll be able to maybe get a room there." So we get back in the car and we go, and I get to the Econo Lodge, and the parking lot's just jam packed. And I go in and I said, "Do you guys have any rooms?" And she's like, "Well, we have one." And it's the old, "We have one room, but." They didn't say but. They said,
Right.
"But
Of course,
it's
it's
2 double beds. It's 2 double beds, there's no queens, no kings." I was like, "I don't care, we're just going to bed. We just need to sleep because we're getting up in the morning and doing a tour." So we check into the room, we get there, and Liz takes the bed beside um, the washroom, and I take the bed by the door, and it takes me a long time to fall asleep because of the monsters and stuff like that. It takes me a while. She just puts a hoodie on, she gets into the bed, she rolls over, and she's out like a light. Takes me a while to get to sleep because 'cause I'm all excited about whatever. And then I wake up at a certain point, and I can hear this foot shuffling, and I see Liz going around the edge of her bed towards the washroom, and I'm hear that her foot shuffling, and I see her disappear around the corner, and I'm waiting for the bathroom light to come on. I'm waiting and waiting, and then all of a sudden, I hear a snore come from the bed beside me, and I was like, "Holy shit, there's a woman in the room." And I sat up and I freaked out and I was like, "Oh my God, I just saw a woman walk around the side of Liz's bed and go into the bathroom and she's laying in bed." freaked out. So I get my flashlight app on my phone. I'm walking around. I'm checking things out. Now I've woken up Liz numerous times and scared the crap out of her because I'm a big chicken. So I've stopped doing that because I'll wake her up, and that's not the thing you want to do. So I just decide to investigate. There's no one there. The latch on the door is locked. I was like, here's what probably happened. I told myself. I woke up, I saw Liz go to the washroom. I fell asleep. 5 minutes passed. She's already out of the washroom, back in bed. I woke up, but thinking that a half second had passed, right? That happens all the time. Like, time is weird when you're in a dream state.
Sure.
I said, that's all that happened. You're all excited about this haunted tour tomorrow. Go back to sleep. So I finally fall back asleep. Then the next thing I hear is sort of this on the table at the end of my bed. I hear this something moving around, shuffling. It's like, oh my God, there's somebody there going through my laptop bag. Is it my passports? Our passports are there. My laptop bag is there. And I sat up again going, oh my God, there's someone going through our stuff. And I just checked, the door's still latched, but the door connecting our rooms, maybe they came through there. And of course, my bag's on a easel, whatever, right in front of the door, and the door's locked. Everything's fine. And I've convinced myself, oh, I probably heard a noise from another room.
Mm.
I finally get some sleep. We wake up in the morning, we're getting ready, and I said, Liz, did you get up last night, middle of the night, go to the bathroom? And she's like, no, I didn't get up once. I just, I didn't get out of bed at all. I was out. I said, well, here's what happened. And I told her the story. And as I was telling her the story, again, she doesn't believe in ghosts. She's fascinated, but she doesn't believe in them the way I do. Her face turns white. And I said, what? She says, well, I thought this might have been a dream, and I wasn't going to say anything. But now that you shared that, she said she woke up in the middle of the night and she felt someone standing over her. And then she felt a hand touch her shoulder. And she knew it wasn't my hand. Felt like a woman's hand on her shoulder. And she thought there was a woman in the room trying to do whatever. So she's very feisty. Unlike me, she steels herself up and she goes to nail her, like just give her a good punch. And there's nobody there.
Mm.
And that kind of freaked her out, and I was sleeping, so she went back to bed, and she's like, "Oh, it was just a weird dream." But the fact that I saw a woman in our room, heard someone doing stuff in our room, and then Liz felt a woman standing over her bed and touching her, I was like, "How the hell do we explain that?" And I honestly don't know. And I've done research. I can't find any stories from this hotel
Mm.
to back up that anyone else has experienced anything. But all I know is I don't know what we experienced. Was there a woman trapped in this room who was, just doing her thing, and we happened to be there one night?
That whole area of the country is littered with weird, strange tales, stories, just
Yeah,
oddities. But between like the Hopkinsville Goblin, and then you're not too far from Point Pleasant. At that point, there's the so many different things to pull from if you want to
yeah.
talk about that area. But yeah, it seems like there's something about the area between the Blue Ridge Mountains and that river that's just ugh,
Something's going on, yeah. So,
yeah,
and strangely enough, it wasn't, while it was eerie at the time, in the morning, we kinda got the chills and stuff, but we didn't feel
yeah,
scared.
yeah,
We just felt like, "Oh, there's a woman here." That's it. That's all we had.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know, it's not scary enough.
No,
It
I know, I
I
know.
know, I know, there's gotta be some kinda, like, action. Yeah. So, what do you do with? Because you probably have tons of people that come to you with a ghost story, right? Like, "Let
Yeah,
me tell you a
yeah.
story." So, from, like, the "This is what happened to me" to the narrative version of the story, like, what do you do? What changes?
So I try to, I mean, just because the story is usually relatively quick, like this thing happened. I want
Sure.
to try to set it up. I think one of the best examples of this was I had a form on my website when I was doing Spooky Sudbury, and somebody had shared a weird UFO experience that had happened.
Mm,
And all they had said is like, yeah, we were camping, we were hunting in the late 70s, and we woke up in the middle of the night, and it felt weird because everything suddenly got dead quiet. There were no noises, no animal noises. We all got out of the tent. We looked up. The whole sky was lit up like it was the middle of the afternoon. And then
mm,
that was it, and then the noises started again, and that's all that happened. I was like, "Well, that's whatever." So I email him back, and I got a few more details. I was like, "Okay, I need some more details." So the first thing I do is I want more details. Like, "Well, tell me about this trip." He's like, "Well, I was 17. It was my first hunting trip." I'm like, "Okay, I got something there." And, everyone else was older. I was the younger brother. I was joining them, blah, 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 blah. And then, explained just a little bit more detail. And so then what I did is I wrote the story where I have he's nervous. It's because I know this coming of age story. I remember my first hunting trip with the older boys, right? They're going to tease me. There's going to be fart jokes. They're going to be drinking around the fire and teasing one another and mocking him and stuff like that. And then you build up this suspense of his nervous energy. And then he wakes up with all the stuff. And then I have the dialogue of them talking to one another. What was that? And stuff like that. And then looking at each other's faces and the how they react to the light. And then just describing the whole scene. So I sent him this chapter and I said, "Okay, I've kind of elaborated a little and I've made up some things. I need you to tell me if this is accurate or not." And I was thinking he was going to come back and go, well, nobody said that and this never happened and blah, 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 blah. And he came back and he said, "Oh my God, it was like you were there." And I realized that I was able to take some more elements about what I knew to be true about humanity and
Mhm.
incorporate that into the story, create this narrative of this nervous young guy having this experience. And that builds some tension that makes the story a little bit more interesting to read as a chapter rather than just a couple lines. Um, I try to do that. So when I do the research, I try to figure out what's the other story that I can lay on top of it, that will make this person more,
Mm,
human to a reader rather than just some guy who went hunting.
mm.
And so that's an important thing that I try to do when I do my research is not just lay down the facts, but also try to paint the picture a little bit more so I can put people in that situation.
What, uh what do you think that woman in the hotel room was?
I don't know if that was just, a woman who was it the spirit of a departed person, or was it some woman who left her spirit there, that it was trapped? Because that's a theory I also go by is sometimes you can be haunting a place and you're still alive because your spirit's still there.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but I felt, sad for her that she was stuck there. And it felt like she was stuck there and just kinda she had nothing better to do but to check out what the hell's going on in the room. So
Mm. D what do you think, like, most of those scenarios are? I mean, there's, like, the idea of, like, someone leaving behind, like, a soul fragment or whatever, like, it's some of these ghost stories where it's like someone's just trapped in a loop, right? They're just
yeah,
doing the same shit over and over. They don't really interact with the outside world, and
yeah,
then, as opposed to, like a thorough haunting or demonic activity or a poltergeist or something like that. Um, yeah, it's
I'm
very interesting.
yeah, I think there's different, why does there have to be one, right? Like, why can't there be, multiple types of hauntings as well? I tend to be more open-minded, about those.
Yeah, I think that people really want there to be, like, one answer, though, and
Yeah,
there's a lot of more recent, I should say, really research that sort of backs up the idea that it is all one cause, like the umbrella of the paranormal experience, whether that means you were abducted, saw a UFO, interacted with a spirit, all that it would be something akin to like what I don't know, what they would have called the Fae or something along
yeah,
those lines. Like it's this thing that exists between our reality and something else
yeah,
that can manifest in this world, does try to screw with us, but also tries to like lead us around and do things that for whatever its greater purpose is. Um, you know, and then there's the other side of that coin where it's like folks genuinely think it's like that. Oh, it's the devil trying to confuse you, lead you
yeah,
astray.
trying to get at us, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but then there's the almost scientific, principle of multiverses and, quantum realities. Is
Mm.
is another reality suddenly, like, TV screen is like the ghost of some TV show showing up
Sure.
between, when you're between channels and you can hear both of them or see both of them, is like, are we experiencing that temporarily?
I
The other thing too is some people
yes.
some people can really experience these things and see things and have access to these, and other people don't. And I equate that to the same thing as a wine expert, right? Someone can drink a wine, they can, it has notes of this and that and the other thing, and they can tell all these things. And I go,
Mm,
ooh, it's a red, it's good, because their palate is so conditioned to experience something that the average person can't experience.
sure.
And I wonder if the perception of that otherness, if that's part of it too, that some people are just more preconditioned to be able to feel and experience it because they at least have a basis to understand what it is, or they actually see things that I can't see.
Sure.
And sometimes we catch a glimmer every once in a while, and our brains in the right way. I woke up, so my consciousness is at just the right level to perceive something that I can't perceive when I'm fully awake. I don't know.
Sure. And that makes you think how much more is going on that you're not tuning into. Um,
Exactly. I was doing an event once, at a library. I was doing a talk about ghost stories of Hamilton, and had somebody at the end, a psychic who was in a medium, who was in the back, and she's like, "Yeah, there's a guy standing behind you the whole time that I
mm,
could see," and she described my father, and that kind of freaked me out. And I was like, "Whoa, holy shit!" Like he's just standing there, just watching the whole bit. My dead father, of course, and so this was kind of like it. Kind of was like, "Whoa." Now, of course, she could have done research and found pictures of my dad online and described this guy or whatever. But it was kind of eerie that she's like, "Hey, he was just standing there watching you the whole time," and you're like,
yeah,
"Wow, can she see something I can't see?" As Hamlet said, there are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in your philosophies. so,
sure.
so you never know, right?
I think that people who are, subject to that kind of higher sensitivity, we sort of think about it like it's like the X-Men. Like we have like somebody has this superpower or whatever that we
Hmm.
just, and it's really in a lot of cases it's like an amalgamation of a lot of different input leads their intuition in a certain direction, right? So,
Yeah,
you know, you let's just say you take me and you into a room and ask us both to look at the same quilt and tell you what colors are on it. I am going to be objectively worse at that most likely than you are because I'm colorblind. And
right.
so someone who can tell you something like, "I feel the presence of your dead father," and they don't know they don't even know if your father's dead, for all of whatever.
Yeah,
It's like they don't necessarily have to go do the research, but if you're good at kinda, like, feeling a person out, understanding even intuitively, but just empathy and psychology, you can really guess a lot of about someone pretty accurately. And then
yeah,
there are mentalists who could tell you what your PIN code is for
yeah,
your bank card, right?
yeah, yeah. No,
And
it's amazing.
they'll tell you themselves, it's not like I'm a psychic, I'm not reading your mind, I'm reading you. Like, I'm looking at
Yeah,
things that you do, habits you have, and coming up with a reasonable guess. And I've been
yeah,
wrong, but I mean, I'm pretty good at this.
yeah,
It's the same principle to me. Like,
yeah,
if someone starts talking about, like, I'm a seer, and they walk into a room and they have, like, make a show about their incense and,
yeah, yeah,
all that kinda thing, and they just at the end of the day, they just wanna sell me their book. You could tell the
yeah,
difference between that and someone who's, like, legitimately pursuing whatever it is with an open
yeah,
mind and an open heart and cares.
yeah,
I think that makes a big difference in how you perceive certain individuals. And what's
oh
scary is
yeah,
that the people who seem like hucksters and are also, like, undeniably really good, because then you don't
yeah.
know. Like, "Oh, well."
It's yeah, yeah. No, exactly.
Yeah,
But yeah, but there's this intuition that they have,
sure.
which is a power. It's a superpower.
Most of the more convincing folks that I've talked to are not folks who think they're special, like, I have a special power. They think
Yeah,
that they're talking to something else that is guiding them,
yeah, yeah,
giving them this information. Like, from an artist perspective, like the muse sort of
yeah,
thing. Or, our friend Bruce, who's also or yeah,
yeah,
his whatever's going on with him. And
yeah.
who's to deny that that's what
Exactly.
that
I mean,
person's
where do I get
experiencing?
the ideas? The
Right.
ideas that come to me, like, is there a muse whispering over my shoulder and going, "Hey, wouldn't it be cool if this happened?" Like, where did it come from? I don't know. Just happens, man.
Yeah, and whether you believe in that muse, like literally or not, if you interface with it that way, that's a really good
Yeah,
way to keep the creative juices flowing. Like I'm the same way when it comes to creativity. I have just accepted a long time ago that it can't be forced. So
yeah,
I treat it like it's waves on the ocean, and I will
yeah,
be doing other things, and then I'll just I'll stop in the middle of doing something. Like I've gone as far as I can with this. I'm gonna wait until something else in my life inspires me to start rolling with
yeah,
this again, and I just have faith that will happen.
yeah.
And don't put a lot of pressure on myself, which leads to some slow script writing. Trust me, but
It can, and it leads to projects that maybe get put aside for years before
yeah,
that you pick them up again, and that's happened to me too.
yeah,
But then suddenly, the muse takes me, and like Del Griffith says in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, you go
mhm,
with the flow like a twig on the shoulders of a mighty stream.
yep, yep. So, what are you what are you thinking? Do you get like with the 20th anniversary was last year
Yeah,
for one of your books, and you've been doing this for quite a while now.
yeah.
Um, you're already giving back so much. I mean, like running the publishing side of things and helping other authors out and all that kind of thing. But like for someone who wants to get into this business, what can they learn from a guy with more than 2 decades of experience?
Well, actually, you can learn from me, but you can learn from almost anyone out there, right? That we have to be open. Michael Connolly's character, Harry Bosch, has a catchphrase that I love, that everybody counts or nobody counts.
Mm,
And so I think the most important thing is that, be willing to learn, be willing to listen, be willing to talk to people about their own experiences. I can learn just as much about publishing in the book world from somebody like you who really knows game design and understands that world inside and out. I
mm,
can learn things that'll help me as a writer, that'll
sure.
help me in publishing. And so the other thing is, there are so many resources out there that you have access to in order to get the answers. There's no reason to shortchange yourself by just learning a couple things and then quickly trying to rush through it. Your art and your creativity is so important. It deserves putting an investment of more time, so you can learn as much as you can to give it a really good shot. Because when you create something, there's probably someone else out there, even if it's 1 or 2 people, that that thing is perfect for them, and
Mm,
you suddenly made their lives better just by creating it. You have that power as a creative person to do that, and so please don't shortchange that beautiful stuff that you have the desire and inclination to create. Take the time to do a proper job,
yeah.
because you can really positively impact the world. I think we all have that ability as creators. Not everyone exploits it, but if you're interested in wanting to exploit it, give it a shot. Yeah, you never know what could happen.
Are you still making a podcast?
Yeah, I do the Stark Reflections on Writing and Publishing. I'm in year 8, weekly podcast, and I haven't missed an episode since I started.
Oh,
And I interview folks, but then I reflect on what I learned from them. And not just writers, but I interview people from across the board, from every industry that I can.
right on. Yeah, well, people can find your work, everything that you're doing, I think, at markleslie.ca, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Cool. Awesome.
Uh,
We'll send people there. I'll have all that stuff in the show notes and links to some of your
Great.
books and everything.
Thanks, Tyler. It was fantastic chatting with you.
Yeah, man. I appreciate it. And talk to you next time. Let me know when you have
All
something
right.
awesome.
Take care.
Thank you very much to Mark Leslie for being on the show. And thank you to, all of you for listening. If you want to support the show, you can go to inthekeep.com. There are many ways there. You can become a Patreon supporter where you'll get episodes early and whatever else I can give you, I guess. Yeah. And what else have we got going on? I'm not sure because I'm like doing this so much earlier than this episode is actually going to be heard by you that I don't know what we're going to be doing at the time. Isn't that crazy? Anyway, I love you. God love you. Stay in the keep.
Hi, I'm Ben, host of the Field and Foley podcast. Every episode I sit down with incredible guests, not just sound designers, field recorders, or musicians, but experts in everything about audio. We explore the creative process behind the sounds that shape our favorite games, films, and experiences. Whether you're an audio professional or just someone who loves great sound, Field and Foley offers deep dives, behind-the-scenes stories, and insights you won't hear anywhere else.